Hey guys, this is Violet. Now, unfortunately, we had a bit of technical difficulty in recording this episode where apparently audio capture was set to the wrong microphone. So you may notice that the audio quality is kind of poor and that there's a lot of room noise and really bad reverb and such. That's something that we're going to be fixing in future episodes going forward, but unfortunately, it just sort of has to exist now at the beginning of our first episode that it sounds a little bit like trash. But anyways, I hope you enjoy our first episode of CINÉMON.
True.
I've got one.
Okay, go for
ladies and gentlemen and everything in between, hello. We are two housemates that live with each other, and we are watching every single Pokemon movie. Yeah. My name online, I just go by either Super Charmander or Ryan with Joe. My pronouns are he, they. I have a degree in creative writing. And I've been to film school, and this is what I'm using it for.
That's immediately going to be the best way we could start this. Hello, everyone. My name is Violet Ayers. You may know me on the internet by the names Sparkling Vinegar or Rose Gold, or I don't know, maybe you followed me back in my My Little Pony fanfiction days and you know me as Ed Elvice. My pronouns are she, Faye, and I'm also here.
Yeah. Well, you've got a music degree, which there's a lot of music in this movie.
I'm sure I'll have many things to comment on regarding it.
I am super sure about that.
So should we?
I will also say, if you guys you guys can stop asking. Yes, we are in episode 41 of Revelations of the Seal of Orichalcos on Dead Soldier Productions. We do in fact play two duelists who get killed immediately by the clones.
I love the statement of "you can stop asking."
Yeah.
All of the fan mail we've gotten for this podcast that I think advertisement for it thus far has been me messaging my polycule and saying, hey, I might do this.
Hell yeah. But yes, so just to give everyone the certain premise and sort of like guidelines for everything go on here. Mm-hmm. Via and I have been watching we'll be watching every single Pokemon movie. We'll be using the dubs.
You gotta, because they're superior.
Yeah. And basically we'll just be kind of giving our thoughts and having discussion essentially. And then at the end of this, we are going to rank all of them in a tier list.
Yeah.
So stick around and stay tuned.
So are we going with the whole because I was prepared for the much more YouTube-y, like, our resolution this year was to watch every single Pokemon movie.
I mean, my resolution was to come out as non-binary, but you know.
And we're all very happy for you.
Thank you. So yeah, there's a there's a movie we're supposed to talk about here.
Which one's that?
That is it was really hard to find out which Pokemon movie came first until you look through the lineup and you realize there's one called Pokemon the First Movie.
It is indeed. That must have been a wild thing to release when there was no Pokemon movies. They're like, hey guys, this is the first one.
Yeah, okay, so I guess for context, we were born in 97, so...
Collectively as twins.
We were alive during Pokemon Mania?
We were. The thing is, that's a good place to start off, actually, is let's talk about our relationship to Pokemon, the
franchise, the first franchise,
the monolith, if you will.
Yes. At the beginning of 2001: A Space Odyssey, they throw a Pokeball down and the fucking monolith comes out.
Because it's a good place that you start with. We were born in the late 90s.
Yeah,
and that means that we have memories of like the big wave of Pokemon, kind of.
Yeah, I will say, if I may, to tell a little tangential story here.
Oh, good.
And I've probably told this to you in real life, but I think the people listening at home would think this story is quite funny.
Sure.
So you know, my two older brothers were super in Pokemon. This Pokemon they were into the craze, especially the one right above me. But my mom hated Pokemon, and she, in fact, well, the story she always tells is that the brother right above me, basically, when this movie was out, there was this teenager in the neighborhood who parents were paying her to take their kids to go see the Pokemon movie so they didn't have to.
Incredible.
And my mom did that for the brother right above me. But then the other brother, him and his friend, after they had already left, him and his friend also wanted to see it. So she ended up having to go take them and see this movie anyway. And my mom has said that this is one of the worst movies she's ever seen. So
that's ringing endorsement we're starting off with.
Yeah.
So my own personal relation is, I don't think I remember a time before Pokemon.
Oh yeah,
even though I was alive during one, formative memories of mine are putting a Pokemon volume back when shows came in 3-episode volumes on VHS.
Yeah.
And literally wearing out this tape because I kept watching it in the built-in VHS player of my mother's Chrysler minivan.
Oh yeah. No, I've had the same thing. Again, some of my earliest memories are again, maybe not, I'll say one thing, it's just not this movie. This movie, I actually this movie in particular. I didn't watch much. I can't imagine my mom would have wanted this to be on the TV a lot. So,
yeah.
But what I do remember, even though I was, again, for memories, I still remember watching the Pokemon, the Pokemon on Kids WB, playing, some of my earliest memories of video games are playing, Pokemon Stadium on the Nintendo 64.
Yeah, same here.
And, I remember we had, because, I oftentimes, it was one of those things that I think kind of, it was sort of something that I could kind of connect with my brothers with, because it was something that even a dumb 2, 3, 4-year-old could enjoy. And so I liked the cards. I liked looking at we had some of the toys. I remember we had this Blastoise plushie that and I think we had a squirrel toy that when you hit when you moved it made sounds. And again, we had entire binders full of the cards. Oftentimes, a lot of them were Japanese cards. I have no idea how my family got a hold of those, but
you just sort of ended up with them, because I also had ones that had the kanji on the front, and then had
on the back it actually said Pocket Monsters.
Yeah, it said Pocket Monsters and had different art for it.
Yeah, so but yeah, very much the same. I don't really remember a time in my life when there was no Pokemon. And as I became older, I think I kind of went through some peaks and valleys of Pokemon. There were times where I was super obsessed with it. There was times where I hated it.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm just kind of a bit I like it, but it's nothing I'm super obsessed with.
Sure. Should I give my... You can finish your anecdote, and then I'll give my...
Well, what I'll say is, my super obsession, that is reserved for Yu-Gi-Oh! Because...
Honestly.
Because I was 5 years old when that started airing here, and I was just the right age to get into that shit, so...
Absolutely. Yeah, no, same. I say same. I think I was into both Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! As a kid.
Yeah.
I probably leaned more towards Pokemon as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And then the older I got, the more I tended toward Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah. Oh, I definitely remember, I guess that was nothing. I had a cousin who was super into Pokemon. That's kind of one of the things we bonded with. Well, both Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And that was definitely, those were, our debates of which is better, Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh! So.
Yeah, they were paired against each other on the kindergarten playground, because I find it weird. I think they were paired together because they were the two anime that every kid our age had seen, which is weird because I don't remember knowing what anime was at that age.
I think it also, again, they had similar, they both had cards,
Sure, okay, yeah, that's fair. But to talk a bit about my own personal relationship with Pokemon, And you know where that's going.
Oh boy.
So I very similar like childhood stories was just I remember watching it as a kid. I remember liking it as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I guess I was going to talk about video games, but I guess I have to start at the very beginning because my first video game console was a Hey You Pikachu N64.
Oh yeah. Oh god, I know this story.
Well, that's not the story I'm going to tell.
Okay. We can save the tragedy for the patrons.
The patrons. Joe's really ambitious with this series.
Hey, new year, new me, new gender. The sky's the limit, truly.
I love that energy. Hey You Pikachu console. So, like, again, that's like one of my earliest memories is even getting that console for Christmas. So before I can even like think, I know that I've been obsessed with Pokemon, and like my first interactions with like media are surrounding Pokemon. And, you know, as I grew up, I remember playing a lot of Pokemon Sapphire on Game Boy Advance. I remember playing a bunch of games. And, you know, as I got older, I tended away from it until I don't know exactly why this particular thing incensed me. You know, Pokemon is a franchise that even if you're not super in it, it's always on your radar because it's the world's biggest media franchise in existence.
Yeah.
So it's always something that's like, you know, I kept up with. I understood things. You know, I would look at discourse going on whenever a new generation was announced.
Mm-hmm.
But was it 2018 or 19? Someone, whoever's listening to this, Google this. You can figure out what time frame I decided to do this to myself.
This is the tragedy
about.
We are talking about.
I want to talk about this early on because this frames my relationship with Pokemon especially as a show to this day.
Yeah, it would to me too.
So back in the day, Twitch had some promotional things they would do called Twitch Presents. Very famously, one they did was like Twitch Presents The Joy of Painting with Bob Ross. So they just played like a big marathon of every Bob Ross episode on just like a 24-hour loop on Twitch. And I found out about them through a collaboration they did with Crunchyroll called Twitch Presents Anime, which was like a week-long 24-hour a day stream where they played like a bunch of different anime.
Yeah.
And I sort of kept up with it. I didn't watch the whole thing, obviously, because I am not going to stay awake for a week straight. But I remember watching like 8 anime in 1 week because of that. And that was really cool. And then they announced Twitch Presents Pokemon. And I swear, listener, please look this up because you need to understand the gauntlet I put my body through, because it was not just a 24-hour stream of them playing every episode of Pokemon. If they had done that, I don't think I would have done this to myself. What they did instead was they were going to play every episode of Pokemon, but structured thusly. Every week would be covering a full season of the Pokemon anime, the episodes of which would be spaced across 5 days, Monday to Friday, I think. No, I think just Monday to Thursday. So 4 days, 4 days, and a season of Pokemon is like 50 episodes.
At least.
So it started at the same time every day. I want to say it started at like 10 p.m. Pacific time. Joe would know that we do not in fact live in Pacific time, so it actually started at 1 p.m. for me.
Okay, yeah.
Or roundabouts. Maybe it started at noon, but I want to say it started at 1.
I'll say I remember your messages popping up in the afternoon as for some foreshadowing.
Yeah. So it would run from 1 to whenever a fourth of a season of Pokemon was completed. So usually at least 8 hours a day of just nonstop Pokemon, including like commercial breaks and breaks between episodes so that I could get up and go to the bathroom or eat or whatever. Mm-hmm. Then Friday and Saturday would play a 24-hour loop of rerun episodes from that week in case I had missed any. And then on Sunday, they would play the appropriate movie of that season. And if you spaced it all out, this was starting in August of that year, and it would go to like February.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Because I remember because I was in college at the time, and I remember just walking through the halls and seeing your messages about your logs that you were putting into our Discord chat server.
Because I was watching it, I was like, I'm gonna fucking do it. They paced it for a marathon. It's not a sprint. I'm gonna do it. This is when I had moved back home and was doing college online. I think was just working as a cleaner for my parents' dog daycare. Like, I didn't have anything else really going on in my life, so I just decided, yeah, I can watch all of Pokemon.
Sweet innocent.
Sweet innocent child. I lasted, I think, a little over 2 months.
I mean, that's an impressive feat on its own.
Which is still fucking insane.
Yeah.
I watched through episode 1, Pokemon I Choose You, at least up to the Pokemon Ranger movie. And by that point in my life, watching Pokemon on that rigorous a schedule had made me so chronically depressed that I threw in the towel and said, I literally cannot continue. This is a drain on my mental health.
Yeah.
So then I stopped. And all of my friends breathed a collective sigh of relief and said, oh, thank God she's not going to kill herself over it.
Yeah. I was there. I remember.
So that is a very long story to start us off, to essentially just put me in the position to say, my relationship with Pokemon has been... It's strange, though, because that means that my relationship with Pokemon is there's almost no thing produced by the Pokemon Company that I like. I do not play the card game, and I don't really engage with it. Any attempts to play any of the games in like recent memory, I just can't get into them. For whatever reason, the gameplay loop is exhaustive, or it's just not built for me.
I'll just say that I was around the 3DS era. I was kind of getting back into the games. I remember playing. I think it was Y is the one I had, and beating that and really enjoying it. And then I remember Sun and Moon coming out. I remember getting getting Moon, enjoying that. And then I remember when Ultra Sun came out. I played it for I got it and I played it for like an hour. Then I was like, this is the exact same game. Why am I playing this? And I haven't touched it since.
Yeah. So games weren't really it for me, and watching the anime was, I believe at the time, I said it was literally the worst thing I had ever endured.
Yeah.
And that, included times that I had been to the hospital and other, severe mental health spirals I had had. Pokemon had been the medium by which one of the worst of those had ever occurred.
Yeah.
And yet... And yet, Pokemon as a franchise, as a media property, simply as a thing that exists in the world, I still have an immense fondness for.
Oh,
and I don't know how to explain it, other than just Pokemon is good, but I don't like engaging with it. Which is a great place for us to start.
Yeah, I mean, Star Wars fans understand.
That's a great place for us to start, because I will say, and I'm not just saying this to give us a premise for a podcast, but The one thing I actually find I do enjoy engaging with is the movies.
Right.
And I think it's because they deliver on what you actually want to see out of Pokemon in such a well condensed package that you can just pick one up and watch it, and it's exactly what you wanted to see. If you're just looking for a nostalgia trip from childhood, it gives you that. If you want to see a cool legendary, it gives you that. If you want to see your favorite Pokemon animated, you might be able to find it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of really all you need from it.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of, and it also like okay, you might be a little confused, but like if you get the general premise of Pokemon, you really can just jump into any of them whenever you want.
Like you don't really need to have the whole like Ash is from Pallet Town and this is his relationship with whatever's on his team.
Yeah.
Because that's gonna be shown to you in the movie.
Yeah,
like,
you really just have to know.
You don't need to be told his relationship with like Pikachu in the first movie, which we'll get to.
Yeah,
we are going to talk about the first movie.
Of course. Oh, right. But I mean, this is.
I know we're giving a lot are preamble.
Yeah, but this is.
We are going to get there.
Yeah, this is the pilot. We have to establish stuff.
Sure. You can just watch the movie and be like, okay, he's very close to like this one in particular,
right?
And they clearly have this history. They've been through it a lot. They clearly sacrifice a lot for each other.
Yeah, these are the characters who are his friends who are on the journey with him.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess it helps that like also I think almost every movie, at least the ones I've seen and I can think of in recent memory, open up with a narrator explaining kind of the basic premise of what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it gives these movies such a very specific vibe that they're the one thing with the Pokemon franchise that I can kind of continue to interact with and not, throw myself into a hell spiral the way that everything else does, apparently.
Yeah.
Which is why I think when I came to you, I don't think I came to you. I think I just floated this out in our living room.
Yeah.
And said, I think I'm just going to watch all the movies, which is a thing I've attempted to do in the past a lot, but I start getting to the ones that aren't good, and then I just stop watching them.
Yeah, that's the other thing is I will say for those folks watching at home, if you want to play along and watch all the movies, have someone with you. Like
really do.
These are not like. Especially just like even having not seen, like I can tell just by like reading the premises of these movies that like these aren't, it's not going to be fun to watch these alone. Have someone you can talk and bounce off of.
Yeah, these are Pokemon. That's another thing I think I enjoy about Pokemon movies is that like they're exactly the kind of movie that's just like, here's a thing that you can get a pal or a bunch of friends and you can just sit in front of it and just riff on it and not take it super seriously. But then you can also still allow yourself, when the movie does take it seriously, to be like, oh, that's actually kind of a neat thing it's doing.
Yeah. And like even if you don't want to do like the riff thing, I remember when we were kids, like these were always a popular one to put on during sleepovers, and like you have a group of like 3, 4, 5 friends, like you all around watching a Pokemon movie. Yeah, that's how I first watched. I think that's how I first watched Heroes. Was my cousin and another friend was having a sleepover. So
I was weirdly also going to say Heroes, is I think that's the first time I experienced it.
Yeah.
Even though I have no memory of that sleepover and no memory of that movie from that sleepover, it was the first time I was like, wait, there's a Pokemon what? Which movie is this?
Yeah, like I remember at the time in like the early to mid 2000s, like the Pokemon movies were always like, they were always a safe bet that everyone was into and everyone was going to enjoy.
You know what it's like? You know how like when you're having a get together of 2 different friend groups that you don't know if they share a lot of interests?
Right.
You know that you can still play Smash Brothers and everyone will be fine.
Oh, yeah.
It gives exactly that kind of vibe of just like, when we were kids at least, that it was just like, yeah, you're like 11. Of course you're into Pokemon. Like,
yeah.
Everyone is.
Yeah.
And I think that's officially enough preamble. Do you want to start talking about Pokemon the first movie, Mewtwo Strikes Back?
Of course. And, this big preamble was on theme because the version of the movie we watched also has a big preamble.
That's true. We're watching... So do you know the history of when this was created, this extended version?
Okay, well, luckily for everyone here, I have the Wikipedia page pulled up on my other monitor.
Man, you did research. I was just going to do that live on air.
Yeah. Although
you did prep work. That's why you're always our DM.
It's. I believe that. Okay, quickly glancing through this, this might have been something that was kind of plays in like maybe like the VHS version and and like most like home media releases. Though I think most streaming services probably don't have this. It's because I do remember we also have watched this together before back in like when we were seniors in high school. Yeah. And I remember because I actually remember like this was actually my first time seeing it without that opening. And I was really confused, like, wait, where's this part? Like, this was a big part. Like, why is it suddenly cut into this?
Yeah, if how you can tell is if you at home, who I'm sure has seen the first Pokemon movie, because why else are you watching this? If you are used to the movie opening, as I am used to it opening, with just like that black background and like bubbles coming up and the narrator talking about like life, the great equalizer or whatever.
What a way to open a Pokemon movie, by the way.
We'll get there when we get there.
Yeah. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
This one opens up instead with, I guess, some establishing shots of...
like a forest.
Yeah, forests and our team of scientists, archaeologists, I guess is what they are.
They're scientists, because it's the same scientist who goes on to create Mewtwo. But yeah, they basically like they go to this ancient temple and they find a like Mew's DNA and they clone that and use it to like they're basically like Giovanni have like funded their kind of experiment to clone Pokemon, and the scientist is hoping to use this to create life. Like he's supposed to like you take this knowledge and use it to create life, so he can bring back his dead daughter.
Nah, that sounds like an incredible jump you just made, and I was gonna like maybe try to build up to that. But the thing is, the movie kind of just throws that at you as well.
Yeah,
like You pretty much just see them coming back with that DNA. They go to what is clearly a cloning lab where they create a little baby Mewtwo that's like just living in a tube of orange liquid. We see like 3 starter Pokemon.
Charmander, Squirtle, and Bulbasaur.
Right, exactly. With like kind of weird, strange markings on them also in these cloning tubes. And then in just sort of Mewtwo's mindscape, we suddenly see like a young girl appear.
Yeah.
And then we get the backstory of this scientist that apparently lost his daughter and then somehow reconstructed her consciousness in a tube.
And his wife was just like, please move on. I can't bear this anymore. And she left him.
It's actually, I found it kind of a interestingly directed scene that like we see him working on that in the basement, and then his wife comes down and says like, what are you doing? Like, what could all of this be for? He then gives the explanation of like, I've brought back her consciousness. If we just continue with this research, I could bring back our daughter, Amber. And then the woman's voice saying you need to let go comes in, but it's clearly like a recording.
Yeah, like a recording, like 'cause she left a note.
Yeah. Well, is like a voicemail of her leaving him. And then we continue to see Mewtwo and this girl's kind of dream, shared consciousness memory thing. Yeah.
She kind of starts explaining things about, about life. I do like the part where she talks about like how like, oh, you're a Pokemon, I'm a person, but here we're just all kind of the same. And she's, she talks, she shows him her I think it's called like her memory land or
her memory place, which is like her memories of the home she grew up in. Yeah. But they don't like go into the house or anything. They just kind of float above it. Another thing I want to make sure I mention before we get too much further is that this girl is referred to as Amber 2, which I think is that horrible way to refer to like you trying to bring your daughter back is to just name her your daughter 2.
Yeah.
Anyways, and then as she's having this like cool thing, and also in this the Mind Palace, there's also the like consciousness of those
of
three
the starter
starter
Pokemon.
Pokemon are along with them, and they're just like looking over on this and everything, and then one of them starts to disappear and like turn to this kind of glittery dust effect.
Yeah, all of them starts to disappear. Then Amber starts to disappear. So it's
Right.
like just Mewtwo.
We get like footage outside of the scientists being like, we're losing. They're like,
Their brain activity is
yeah, we see like waveforms on a computer or whatever, like
yeah.
flatline. And even as as they're losing the girl, it shows her turning to Stardust, and she turns to Mewtwo and is like, "Oh, I'm having to go," or so. Like she's very calmly.
I think part of the like one thing is established is that before that she's like showing him like, oh, that's the sun. It keeps us bright and warm. And like when like it turns like this is the sunset. That's when the sun says goodbye. And then then suddenly she has to start. Then like she is fading away and has to say goodbye. I will say this is also is juxtaposed of like the like bright light that represents her consciousness is also like fading away in the tube.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I also noticed the scientist who is still like in this research lab because he's still trying to just bring back his daughter. Well, as he's like watching the consciousness fade, he just sort of remarks like, Amber. But he's not like sad or distraught that like presumably like many years of whatever is failing in front of him. He's like weirdly disaffected by it, which I found very odd.
Yeah.
And then we see in the like consciousness of Mewtwo that he begins crying. And he's like, I don't understand. What are these on my face? What is this thing that I'm feeling? And she's like, oh, they're tears because you're sad because I have to leave. You know, my dad used to tell me a bedtime story that Pokemon tears contain life or something like that.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm sorry, but you're not going to be able to bring me back. I have to go. And like she, I guess, dies again.
Yeah. And then Mewtwo is just kind of left alone and just...
And then we get into where the movie proper would start.
Yeah.
So, but before we get into the movie proper, I do want to ask, what are your feelings on that opening sequence?
That opening sequence, I will say that opening sequence is weird because in some ways I feel like it's both filling in some blanks that the actual movie left, like it's kind of explaining some things or at least establishing it, but in also some ways like I do feel like I feel like a lot of it was like a lot of it does like feel like none of this is ever brought up again. Like Mewtwo never really seems to actually remember any of this.
So I guess the one way that you could say he's remembering it is, and we'll get to this much later, but like the later clones that he makes have those markings on them.
Right.
But kind of just on principle, I don't really care about that because I don't really remember him really making that much connection with those three clones.
Yeah.
And also the fact that he would never mention this girl again, admittedly, because I think they like wipe his memory after that happens.
I think they do say like, oh, wipe his memory, he'll be too sad or something like that.
I wrote in my notes after that sequence was done that I really didn't know what my feelings were on it.
Mm-hmm.
Having now seen the entire movie following it, I think that whole sequence is unnecessary and unneeded.
Yeah, I think the one thing it does try to make it like establish that Pokemon tears can create life, which because other than that, just like the scene at the very end, which spoilers, but
no. We'll cover that when we get there. But I understand what you're saying, that it establishes this idea of Pokemon tears are filled with life.
Yeah.
And normally I would be like, I thought to myself at the time, like, oh, okay, that's good that they're establishing that because the thing that happens later, I always thought was like a weird...
out of nowhere.
However, rewatching this movie again, that is mentioned.
It's
like blink and you'll miss it, but it is there. And I kind of like how it's established there better than in this prologue.
I disagree. I kind of think it's just offhandedly mentioned, like that was a weird thing to say.
We will talk about it when we get there because we're having to talk around it right now.
Yeah.
I guess the only real thing I can give this opening bit that much credit for is it does consistently have that kind of vibe that I enjoy from Pokemon movies. which is it has that very nostalgic childhood innocence feel to it, but yet there is something greater and I guess darker, but just more mature, like there that's being addressed.
Like the story. It's like on paper, the story again, a scientist trying to bring back his dead child who was like no older than 5.
Yeah, who's like very, very young.
Yeah, like, and, you know, him like dedicating his life to this experiment that, you know, later on ends up killing him. Like,
it's like that weird, like that's such a like heavy, darker thing than you'd expect from Pokemon the movie.
Yeah,
and I like that feeling of it being weirder and darker than you're expecting from Pokemon the movie. But then ultimately, it kind of doesn't really do much with that. It's just sort of a strange, weird.
Yeah.
The 5-year-old girl kind of dies.
Yeah, like because I think what's attempting to do is trying to explain things that were not maybe fully explained in the theatrical cut of this movie, and I don't really know if it does that for it. Like if it accomplishes that goal.
I don't think it does either. If anything, the one thing that it does kind of establish, it feels like it's signposting so incredibly hard,
right,
that it ultimately kind of ruins the feel of when it does happen.
Yeah.
Also, the other thing I want to talk about is I really hate it as a prologue because the ultimate message when this girl is dying and Mewtwo is crying is like, oh, but your tears can't save me this time. Sometimes you just have to say goodbye, which is another thing that these Pokemon movies try to do, which is to be maybe more profound than they're really capable of, but they're still trying, and I love them for that.
Yeah.
But that like ultimately ends up super conflicting with the thing later on.
Yeah.
Like, wait, if that's the whole message, then why... We need to move on because we need to get to the thing we're talking about.
Yeah.
I say that like as if, again, anyone listening to this podcast doesn't know the plot of this movie by heart and the big thing that happens in it. But
yeah, so that moves on to the beginning. Like we actually see, you know, the bubbles come up, and that is like when Mewtwo is fully created and birthed. He reawakens and he just shatters through this shatters through his test tube. And I think that's another thing is just all the scientists, and I guess you kind of brought this up when it's like the scientist doesn't really sound like he really cares, but like they're all going like, oh, we did it, we created the Pokemon. They're all shaking hands and they're all, oh yes, you will now be part of our experiment. This is a great achievement. It's like, I don't get the sense, like watching these scientists, I don't get the sense that they've had any tragedy in their life that like, like, especially the main scientist who like that was his daughter. Like he's all smiles and, oh, this is great, we'll have to start experimenting on you immediately.
I mean, from my perspective, I guess by then Mewtwo clearly took several more years to fully develop,
right?
And I guess by that point he had maybe made his peace or something. I don't know,
but like
I'm giving it a lot of credit.
For
really
him to
what
like
it boils down to is, why was that prologue there?
Like even if he had like looked like slightly kind of almost like saddened before or something, but like nah, it's another thing that just makes this prologue feel a little tacked on.
Come to think of it, another thing that really makes this prologue not great, and I promise we will talk about the movie and not the prologue, is there was no reason to give motivation for that scientist,
right?
Because ultimately he's not the one funding this project anyway.
Yeah, it's Giovanni
who's doing that, who's doing it just so he can create this like world's greatest Pokemon.
Yeah.
So like, why does it matter? Like, the scientist having personal investment doesn't really seem to have any bearing on anything, because he's not the one who started the project.
Yeah.
He didn't start the project to bring his daughter back. He heard that Giovanni wanted to bring back Mewtwo and was like, I will also use this opportunity to bring my daughter back.
Yeah. Yeah, and but yeah. So to make a long story short, Mewtwo doesn't want to be a test subject, doesn't want to be an experiment, and he blows up the island and kills everyone on board.
100%, like just reduces it to just a big pile of just like smolder and fire.
Yeah,
and then overhead we cut to Giovanni and his pet Persian in a helicopter overlooking this burning island of his research, and he's just smiling to to himself.
Yeah. Like,
because he's the most comically villainous motherfucker in the world.
Yeah, like, dude, you don't even know if this is a success. For all you know, your test subject just died.
Anyway, Giovanni then lands his helicopter in the fire.
In the fire, gets out with no guards or anything.
Nope. And just walks up to Mewtwo and is like, I see you didn't want to be, like, their test subject or anything, but for me, you shall be my partner.
Yeah.
And convinces Mewtwo to come with him to, like...
control his powers, I guess.
Yeah, control his powers and, I guess, show him his life's purpose.
Yeah. Because I will say that's one thing, and one thing that I don't want to lose is, like, a big theme of kind of Mewtwo's character is just kind of your purpose in life. And in fact, the first line Mewtwo has, in fact, if you take out the prologue, the first spoken word in this movie is, "Who am I?"
Yeah, right. So Giovanni is like, come with me, I will help you control your powers. And then we immediately cut to him hooking him up to this, like, power armor?
Yeah, like this like Boba Fett looking sort of like...
Yeah.
Like yeah, and trust me, that armor is cool as hell. There's a reason, like, still, like, mixing in fan art. Like, I remember, like, the mod for Brawl that put Mewtwo back in, like, that's one of the costumes you can give him.
That's awesome.
But, like, I think it's, like, supposed to, like, make him more controllable, like...
Yeah, Mewtwo, the second he puts it on, remarks, like, you say this was supposed to help me, but I can feel this armor suppressing my power. And Giovanni's like, no, it's not suppressing, it's helping you to control it, it's focusing it, which I think ultimately is kind of bullshit.
Yeah, but, conditioning.
So, and then we get a montage of Giovanni using Mewtwo, I think as...
like a soldier.
Both as his position as the gym leader of Viridian City and as the leader of Team Rocket, using Mewtwo to just, like, wipe out Pokemon battles in a single, like, wave of his hand.
He destroys Garyoke in his like back of the head cameo.
Okay, so I'm gonna talk about that because I remember that is in the anime itself when Ash and Gary go to Viridian and go to the Viridian gym. One of them does go up against this version of Mewtwo in this power armor.
Huh.
Which is why the movie is called Mewtwo Strikes Back. Despite the fact that it is theoretically the first movie and is theoretically an introduction to Mewtwo as a character.
Huh.
That's why it sounds like it has a sequel title.
Yeah.
So if you had watched the show, we caught a glimpse of Mewtwo before, but in this armor and clearly controlled.
Yeah.
I don't think Ash ultimately fights him. I think by the time he gets there, Team Rocket is acting as gym leader.
Yeah. I will also say we always do get a glimpse of Mewtwo, like the theme song. He's one of the first Pokemon that shows up in the theme song. Like, yeah. And
so... after a while, I guess just after a lot of contemplation, Mewtwo just realizes that he's being used as a soldier and as a tool, as a weapon.
Yeah, it happens when Giovanni kind of lets it slip, like, ooh, now you are my soldier. You must, like, no, your purpose is to obey me. I'm your master. It's like
right. Mewtwo essentially just says, fuck that. And just, like, I actually love this shot. It's so beautiful. Of him just, like, we see just, like, this beam of energy shoot up and, like, it just blow up Giovanni's lair or whatever.
Yeah.
And then Mewtwo zooms off into the sky.
Oh, and as the armor's, like, falling apart around him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. As he's, like, zooming upward in this beam of energy, the, like, bits of armor are just, like, shattering off of him.
Yeah.
And he flies back to that original island where he was created, and all he's wearing at that point is the helmet that he then, like, throws on the ground.
Yeah.
And just has decided that, like, the world itself is corrupt and humans are evil and Pokemon are kind of complicit for following them, and just decides that he hates all of it and is going to destroy the world.
Yeah, that's his purpose now, is going to just destroy the world and create it with clones just like him.
Yeah.
I will say I do like you bring up like that shot is just really well done.
It's really good.
I will say one thing is this movie has beautiful animation. Like,
it really does. When it really wants to show it off, it does do it really, really well.
especially compared to like again being adapted from a show that used like so many like reused shots of just Pokemon attacking in a blurry non-specific colorful background.
That's the thing is, and this will slowly become less the case as we go through these movies. This one, the first Pokemon movie, they really were trying to sell it, I think, as a theatrical. I mean, it was a theatrical movie. Like,
yeah,
this wasn't just like, oh, TV show the movie. Like, no, they wanted to put a lot of effort into this, even though I think it ultimately kind of is just TV show the movie.
But no, like they wanted, and you can even tell like by like the music as well. Like, okay, there's the music, but then there's the music, like the background music, like the orchestral. It really does, like, it has kind of the thing I absolutely love, like that. I think like all good kind of backing track to movies do is where you can clearly tell that the music and the scene were kind of written around each other.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
like, but like as Mewtwo is rising and flying up, like the music is giving a big rise as well. So, and then like it's very nice orchestral score.
Yeah. I really liked it. And then now with Mewtwo established, we cut to our typical Pokemon narrator introducing us to Ash and friends.
Yeah.
Now that all of that like very heavy dark shit has been established, let's go over to 10-year-old Ash Ketchum.
Yeah, I think it's still amazing. Like, no matter which version of this movie you're watching, like, this movie opens up with people dying left and right.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then immediately cuts to, I think the narrator even is like, Ash Ketchum, the boy destined to become the world's greatest Pokemon master, and his like his strong willpower and all that stuff. And he's just like on face planting on the table, like, my stomach.
yeah. And then and he's just like Missy's like, Ash, you haven't done anything all day. I haven't eaten since breakfast. Well, this lunch will do you well.
Right, exactly.
I think that's actually like a pretty like well like kind of like set up joke that like
yeah, it's pretty good.
Then just this random pirate shows up.
I think I called him Team Magqua because his bandana has kind of the Team Aqua logo on it.
Yeah,
if you squint, it has kind of like a simplified skull and crossbones.
Yeah, but he also has like just like his color scheme is very fire. Like he has like it's red. He's got like a yellow vest on, like,
which is great because he's neither a fire nor water trainer given his Pokemon.
Yeah. I'll say that's one cool thing is that like basically we then kind of he's just like, I'm looking for Ash Ketchum from Pallet Town. And I want to battle him. And then Ash immediately gets up and he's just like, I'll take on your challenge. And then that's when we get our opening sequence where they play this remixed kind of poppy version of the Pokemon theme.
The original Gotta Catch 'Em All theme that you will be familiar with if you know anything about Pokemon whatsoever.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure my mom, I said before, my mom hates Pokemon. I'm sure she knows at least some of those lyrics.
We really could just call it the Pokemon theme, and that's the one people are
getting. Yeah. Despite the fact there's 25 other ones.
Well, that's the thing. We're nerds, and specifically ones that care a lot about 4Kids media for some reason.
Oh, yeah.
So we know that there's 25 different Pokemon openings, but like this is the one people give a shit about.
Yeah. When you say Pokemon, one of the first things people will think is, I want to be the very best like no one ever was.
Exactly. And we just get a Pokemon battle between this random challenger and Ash. And one of the things I pointed out is his first Pokemon
is a Phantump, I believe.
Yeah. Which is a Gen 2 Pokemon. And that's something that I really like that the anime does. You'll see a Pokemon from a generation. Because we looked it up. At the time, the Gen 2 games hadn't even been released when this movie came out.
This movie around the same time, because this movie was like 2000. This movie was released in like 2000. So
no, this maybe in America. In Japan, this movie was 98. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So this was a good while before Gold and Silver.
Yeah. So yes, it didn't come to the States until 2000. So
exactly. My point though at the beginning was just like, I think it's really cool that especially Indigo League did this a lot. Like, showed you Pokemon that you hadn't seen before.
Yeah.
Which is something that I think is like a really bold move by Pokemon to be showing, like, in episode 1 we see Ho-Oh. Halfway through season 1, Misty hatches an egg and it's a Togepi. This random trainer who is unnamed at the beginning of this movie, who we see for, 2 minutes at best, has
a Phantom. He doesn't even say it. Like he doesn't even like, we don't hear much. Like we can't really hear what anyone's saying because the song's playing over all of it.
Yeah, exactly. It's just the song in the opening credits, so we don't hear that thing's name. It's just the moment. And I love that Pokemon absolutely would do that at the beginning of this movie, is to show you a thing and go, what is that?
Yeah. And I guess just one more thing, just to before we kind of move on, I will say that this pirate dude, I don't know how awfully he changes his Pokemon, but like, because like he sends out Phantup, he sends out, oh god, who else? I think like he sends out like Machamp, which gets its ass kicked by like a Squirtle. And then he sends out like 3 Pokemon at once. I think one of them is like Golem. I think one's like Venonat. Like he sends out like 3 like fully evolved Pokemon, which are taken out all by one shock from Pikachu. Like it's just something funny. Like, man, like either Ash is just like maxing out the stats in all his Pokemon, or like this guy just fucking sucks. Anyways, so what happens next is that like Mewtwo's like watching footage of this battle, and then like.
Yeah, we like cut to a camera on a Fearow overhead watching it. That cuts to a monitor on some location where Mewtwo is watching this battle, and this like human woman, who I guess is his like maid or servant, is just like, should we invite them too, Master? And he says yes.
Yeah. And then so he sends out like a Dragonite.
Yeah, a Dragonite carrying like a messenger bag.
Yeah, who like just destroys their like picnic table, and then like he gives him like this like he first like he gives like the invitation is like this photographic like this like metal card that like
projects a hologram.
Yeah, it's like, yes, my master is the greatest Pokemon trainer in the whole world, and he invites you to, I think they literally call it New Island.
New Island, which I think is really good.
Yeah, and then like his like additional invitation is like this like it's this like
literally a card that falls out of the Dragonite's bag that just says, is blank on one side and the other side just has 2 checkboxes that say yes, no.
Yeah, like I do like that these kind of things like man, you can still tell that Mewtwo is like, despite like all of his grandstanding about how corrupt humanity is and how servitile Pokemon are, he still is just a child who like names his home New Island and gives off these like birthday
invitations.
Yeah, these birthday invitations that he made on loose leaf paper.
And so Ash is like, yeah, we gotta go. It's the greatest Pokemon trainer of all time. I gotta battle him.
Yeah.
We gotta go to the like harbor indicated on the map in the projection.
Yeah.
I guess it's also worth mentioning that while all this is going on, Team Rocket is following them, observing them, as they do.
Team Rocket stops a Dragonite with a frying pan.
Yeah.
They like it just runs into the frying pan and then it just stop in place and they grab an invitation for themselves.
Then, having sent the invitations out, and the invitations literally say, like, go to this harbor, we have a boat waiting for you that will bring you here.
Mewtwo realizes that there's no boat in his budget.
Yeah. We cut to Mewtwo, who... we don't really see him. He's, like, in a chair or something.
Yeah.
But we just see, like, his hand reach up and glow with psychic energy, and he just, like, starts swinging it around and essentially conjures up a hurricane.
Yeah, and that's another thing I kind of do like, how like there's never like a really like, because this movie does have a few times where like, well, Mewtwo will just say what he's doing. This is the one scene where like he's not like, I will now conjure up a hurricane to keep them at bay or something like that. Like, no, he just does it but like it's one of those things of like, you can see his arms moving, you see the clouds are changing, you see like you kind of get what he's doing and what's going on just through the visuals alone.
Yeah, it is really cool. And this is another moment where I think you mentioned before that like music syncing with the animation, what's going on, it has this kind of rising and falling and back and forth as things are getting more and more chaotic. It's really good. It's one of those things that like when these movies work, they work really well.
Yeah. But yeah, everyone is at the everyone is like at the harbor, and there's all these trainers just like
packed into
this like
harbor. I don't know what the hell it is actually.
They're just packed into like a building that's right before the harbor.
Yeah, it did like a boat dock shelter, I guess. I don't know what else to call it.
Yeah, the storm. Yeah. Anyways, the storm is like basically like apparently like according to is it like okay? So like Officer Jenny is there, and she's like, "Oh, sorry, this ship isn't gonna come. This is probably like, isn't the harbor master says this is the worst storm ever?" Or
I believe she is introduced as the harbor master. Yes, a blue-haired woman with for no reason. This is why we insist on 4Kids being what we watched. Like a unexplained thick Russian accent.
Yeah. Like I absolutely love that 4Kids will just like again Yu-Gi-Oh is especially just the big one. Like they will just give these random characters like either just an accent or like a celebrity impression or just some weird Muppet voice.
Yeah. So this woman just has this strange like thick Russian accent and explains like, no, you do not understand. Like this storm that is coming is just as bad as she like references some other previous storm that happened. That
like
wrecked a ship or something.
Yeah, like but like I think it's like that like it destroyed an entire village and
the only thing remaining was the Pokemon.
Yeah, and they used their tears to bring back all the people there, but Pokemon have never cried since then.
That actually, so this is what I was talking about before with Amber talking about like, oh, Pokemon tears are full of life or whatever. I actually like this better as an introduction because, like I said before, it's one line. It's delivered by a character who has an accented voice that's saying something that is kind of hard to make out.
Yeah, a character whose name is Harbor Master, probably.
Yeah, precisely. Just kind of offhandedly giving this legend of like, oh, Pokemon tears had mystical properties in this one tale, I think is a lot better than Amber very specifically saying that like, oh, there's a story about Pokemon's tears being full of life. I like it being spelled out a bit less.
Yeah, I see that.
Do I think there could have been more emphasis given? Yes.
Yeah, it still is a scene like where like look if a kid turns to their parent asking what the hell happened at the end of this movie, they're not going to the parent isn't going to remember that one spoken line.
No, but I think it's okay if you don't fully know what's going on during that scene, which is like it does leave you with a wait, what happened? Why did that work? And then on a rewatch, you can maybe notice like, oh, this woman told this story where she implicated this thing had happened in the past one time, rather than the prologue for the extended cut, like so heavily signposting it.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, so they kind of they all decide to like for the most part they shut down. Oh, I guess one other thing is they said like they also mentioned that like, oh, if your Pokemon get hurt out there, there's no Nurse Joy around because apparently only like these places only employ one, and they can't.
The Pokemon Center is shut down because we're missing the one nurse.
We can't call in another one from a nearby town or anything.
Well, then that Pokemon Center would be missing their Nurse Joy, Joe.
Yeah, maybe they should like hire people who hire people who don't look they should hire outside the family of Nurse Joy.
That's capitalism and nepotism, my friend.
Yep.
Anyways,
but yeah, so a select few trainers, big guy, boy, and girl.
They're never named.
Yeah,
they're like kind of main characters in this movie, and they are never named. We should just We should just refer to them by their 4 kids voice actors, because that girl to me just is Lisa Ortiz.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It doesn't really matter what her name is.
Well, hold on. I guess I have to remember. Well, because apparently her name is Miranda, by Lisa Ortiz.
Never stated.
Then then I believe these are the right characters. Wikipedia only gives me these only gives me like just the names. There's no pictures.
Oh no. The character I'm looking at is listed on behind the voice actors as Nisha.
Oh,
Voiced by Lisa Ortiz.
Huh. Well, Wikipedia says that she's voiced by Amy Birbaum.
Okay.
Kids, this is why you'd have to do more research.
This character is definitely Lisa Ortiz.
Oh yeah.
Voice anywhere.
Yeah.
James Carter Cathcart, Ted Lewis, and Lisa Ortiz.
Yeah.
Those 3 characters step forward and they're like, the like big guy's like, my Pokemon are all water type. We can make it through that storm no problem. And the girl's like, yeah, we can do it. The Harbor Master and Officer Jenny are both like, that's a stupid idea and you shouldn't do it. And they do anyways, because of course they're foolhardy, bullheaded Pokemon trainers that will overcome any obstacle or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I think that's because at first, like, I think literally, I think it's either like right after. I guess we'll establish before we get we get lost in the plot. Ash, Misty, and Brock are like, oh, but none of our Pokemon can make it through that storm. And luckily, this Team Rocket comes by dressed up as Vikings on a wooden ship with Meowth as like their whatever that's called.
What do you call
front.
That? The girl on the front of the like angel on the front of the ship or whatever is Meowth.
Yeah, and they're just doing, and again, like 4 kids of just these probably offensive voices.
Are they offensive to Swedes? I wouldn't know, but very strong Swedish accents.
Yeah. It's like, come on, we are Vikings. Why don't you get on the ship? Like,
yeah, we're gonna roll you over.
And then as everyone leaves, I will say there's just the part where like the Harbor Master, like this weird scene where she just like, again, like where it's like, why is this person like given, like, why is this character given so much emphasis? She's literally like Jenny's like, no, come back. It's like, you cannot stop them. You see, they are determined. That is what separates the Pokemon masters from the trainers or whatever. Like
ma'am, weren't you 20 seconds ago being like, if you go out in this storm, you will die? And then she's immediately just like, nah, actually, they've got heart, these kids.
Yeah, let them go. They can make it. They have, like, they believe in themselves. So they're going through the sea, and we cannot forget to mention the best line in this movie.
If you want to, because I know you love this.
Oh yeah. So while Team Rocket is rowing our heroes across the sea, Brock makes the mention of, I didn't know Vikings still existed.
And Ash's response is, well, they mostly live in Minnesota. Which,
for those who don't know,
this is why we watch 4 kids.
Yeah, because there's a reference to a football team in a Pokemon movie. And I especially love, like, the implications of that line. Like, does that mean, like, there is a Minnesota in the Pokemon world?
Well, would it not be? It's in Unova.
Yeah, like, is there, and like... Well, here's the thing: do Vikings actually inhabit that island, or is Ash? Is there also a Minnesota Vikings in the Pokemon world, and Ash is just making a cute, cheeky reference?
More importantly, does Ash watch professional football?
Yeah,
these are questions for later. Does football involve Pokemon in this world?
Yeah,
like we're thinking of it as like. Just like, you know, humans playing American football. What if it's like Machamp?
Yeah. What if like they just brought Machamp, who can like legally lift skyscrapers onto a football field?
I'm sure American football is much harder when half your team are flying types that are really difficult to tackle.
Especially because they have to use tackle specifically.
Okay, that's as much American football as I think I can talk about in our Pokemon review.
Just that is 4Kids. Thank you so much for trying to make me believe that this is America, and that these white
This is America.
that these like white like triangle shaped confectionaries are actually jelly filled donuts.
That they're confectionaries at all to begin with.
Yeah.
And not just pounded rice.
Yeah. But yeah, so they eventually a big tidal wave comes and pushes Ash and friends off on the ship, and they can they still manage to use their Pokemon to like Squirtle and Staryu to swim through this sea. Again, screwed up that Misty doesn't have any Pokemon that are more capable, like the water gymnast over here. Ash and friends, they make it to the shore. Team Rocket washes ashore. Glad they didn't drown.
Do Team Rocket have a water Pokemon that they made it through with?
No, they actually, I think they specifically use Weezing to get through.
Ah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, Weezing floats, so.
Sure.
Yeah. But yeah, so eventually, Ash and friends, as they come, the maid is waiting for them, and leads them through this cave. I will say, this is another thing I actually love about this movie. The setting, which I'll say, you said this random island that he's suddenly on. I think and again, this is another thing where I like that this is never actually explicitly said, but it's heavily implied that when Mewtwo went back to the island where he was created, to that science lab, he basically that was First Island. He took the debris and rebuilt it and made it his home.
I knew that was the case. And you're building up to this really, really cool structure he's built.
It looks almost like a theme park in a way.
I can kind of see that. It's like big Gothic architecture, but also kind of organic feeling.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it was built so much as it's just grown this way.
Yeah, I get that. It's a very, very interesting looking, very cool looking place. Words kind of can't do it justice.
Yeah, a lot of the inside furniture and stuff, because the woman who I think Brock immediately recognizes is oh, that's the missing Nurse Joy.
Yeah.
She leads them into this kind of banquet hall, and I remember the banquet table is not it's literally a stone that is growing out of the stone floor.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
And we also see, it's important that maybe we should establish this is going on. Also, outside this island, there are these big, I guess they're windmills? Big kind of fan-looking structures on these spires. And floating around and playing on one of them is a Mew.
Yeah, it's Mew, which I do think is pretty that is one thing that I guess we almost forgot. Mew is just kind of in the ocean and then just awakens.
We've seen some shots of it before, but yeah, there's just Mew kind of floating around in both the ocean or over this one mountain it's pictured next to a lot.
Yeah.
And now we see it just sort of floating over this structure that Mewtwo has built on New Island. And it's just sort of playing around and being innocent and childlike.
I especially love that. That's a really cute thing where it's going on the rotors of this windmill and hopping from one to the other.
It's really cute.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I will say this is one scene where the pacing is a little all out of whack because
we keep cutting back to Team Rocket.
Yeah, Team Rocket are sneaking aboard and going and finding as they're about to go in the banquet hall, the door closes on them, and that's when Mewtwo, they're oh, my master will now make his introduction. Mewtwo comes down and he has his big grandstand. This dramatic music is playing as he's just welcome trainers, you are here. You see, I sent that storm out to challenge you, and and it appears you are the only ones who make it. You humans are weak, and you will have to challenge me because I am the greatest Pokemon master and greatest and the most powerful Pokemon in the world.
And it's this big dramatic moment, and we immediately cut to Team Rocket, who is just I guess coming in through a sewer. that this building has, I guess.
And yeah, they're just making whatever, Team Rocket, comedic jokes.
That are so funny, we've forgotten all of that.
Yeah, like juxtaposed with scenes of like the Pokemon trainers are like sending their Pokemon out to attack, and like Mewtwo is deflecting all their attacks. I think the big guy, he literally like picks up and like throws around, and like this is
he holds his hand out with psychic energy and lifts this big Pokemon trainer like 20 feet in the air and is holding him up there as one would if like Darth Vader was choking someone, and then like sweeps him down and throws him into a fountain.
Yeah. Like he is like legit like cringing in pain. Like you can tell his movements are restricted.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we see Team Rocket on their wacky adventure as they climb through this sewer.
And like Mew flies behind them occasionally, and Meowth is like, what's that?
Yeah, exactly. And they somehow find their way to a cloning lab. That Mewtwo has rebuilt from the the rubble of the original cloning lab.
Yeah, and like that's where like you also see like in a test tube you see a Charizard, a Blastoise, and a Venusaur with these strange markings all over their body.
And Team Rocket just sort of like interacting with this. I think Jessie like sits on a control panel as one does.
And her butt like presses a button that like shows the recording of the scientist of like recording what happened before he died, and which I will say we forgot to mention it when it happened, but I do love this line.
Me too.
Of
I know the one you're gonna say.
Yeah, of like we were trying to create the world's most powerful Pokemon, and we succeeded.
And as soon as he says that, this like psychic blast goes off, and him and all the other scientists die. It is very chilling, and I really like it.
Yeah, like that's a great line of just like it's a very. I think they even mention of just like I think Pokemon like oh it's like the T-Rock like oh it's like a Pokestein. It's like it's kind of goes in that same of like the original like of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein's novel about like someone who set off to create something that was bigger than their ambitions. Like their ambitions were like bigger than they could think, and they ended up creating something that like was a monster instead.
And so then I guess one of them accidentally like turns on this machine, which picks up Meowth and puts him on this conveyor belt that's going to, I guess, start taking his DNA, and it just grabs a little bit of hair off his tail.
Yeah, and he says like, I mean, if just by a hair. Like, wait, there's your hair on the screen.
Right, exactly. It then shows these 3 strands of hair that it then starts like weaving into like a helix shape. It creates like a 3D render silhouette, and they of course look up at it and go, who's that Pokemon?
It's Meowth.
It's really good.
Yeah.
And then out of this machine, we see just like this bubbling in this fluid, and like a newly formed clone Meowth comes down one of these tubes to just like sit at the end in this tube of fluid. And Meowth is just sort of like
enamored with it, honestly.
Yeah, is like he literally is like, this is a clone of me.
Yeah. He literally is just like looking at it like with just curiosity. There's a line I want to bring up a bit later. So remind, but like there's a scene like when like all the other Pokemon are like getting put in their tube, and he's like, they're making so many clones, but this one means a lot more to me.
We cut back to I think trainers fighting against Mewtwo.
Yeah, Mewtwo challenges. I'll say we're gonna skip ahead a little bit, but like,
hold on. There's one thing I have to mention before all of this, which is that when Ash first enters this banquet hall, he meets this other trainer, Ted Lewis, who's like, "Oh, it took you guys a while," and he's like, "Wait, how did you get here so fast?" "Oh, I didn't even go through the water. I flew here on my Pidgeotto." And the Pokemon next to him is very clearly a Pidgeot.
Yeah.
Like, it has the long yellow hair. It makes me very upset. And throughout the whole movie, it's voiced as if it was a Pidgeotto, and it just straight up isn't.
Watch, the comments are going to put out, actually, it's
not.
talent.
No, fuck off. It's a Pidgeot. It has the long yellow hair.
you see its talents are like brought together as a Pidgeot, so that means the movie is actually right.
No.
Just watch.
So then I guess Ash makes more of a formal declaration of like, I want to fight you, I want to challenge you, and Mewtwo says okay, and then like opens up this door behind him which leads out to just like a perfectly formed Pokemon stadium that he has on this island.
Yeah, and of course, before we forgot, he releases Nurse Joy, and she's just there now.
Right, he like releases Nurse Joy from whatever psychic bind he had on her, and she's like, "How did I get here? What's going on?" And Brock's like, she's back.
Yeah, I brought you here from the Pokemon Center, and I've been messing up your mind for the past few weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, whatever's been going on there. So Mewtwo goes and like takes his place on one side of the Pokemon Stadium, which everyone sort of files out into. And then back in the lab, we see Team Rocket as they're like looking at these Pokemon. Some signal goes off to send the cloned Pokemon out, and they come out of these tubes. I don't know how to describe this.
It's not like one of those like this is like a very organic sort of base. Like it's not like the tubes like open up. It's like no, they are like sucked through the bottom, and then they kind of crawl out as if they are being born like out of the womb.
Yeah, a little bit. Like there's this like kind of black rubbery substance at the bottom, but it doesn't open up for them so much as they just sort of climb through.
Yeah, it's very much is like, again, this castle is giving birth to them. Like,
yeah, that is a good way of putting it. And then we cut back to the stadium where they emerge as they're going to like fight on Mewtwo's behalf.
Our trainers, Ash and these two other trainers, Lisa Ortiz and
Ted Lewis.
Ted Lewis, yeah, Lisa Ortiz and Ted Lewis. They battle against these clones, and like Lisa Ortiz is using a Blastoise.
And so Mewtwo sends in his Blastoise to show that like his is superior.
Yeah.
Ted Lewis sends out his Venusaur, so Mewtwo sends his Venusaur to show it's superior. And so Ash sends in his Charizard, who puts up a pretty strong fight.
Which I'll say again, that's another like really like well done fight of like where they're flying up in the air and the fire. It's short, but like it's really well done. Just like I like for like Ash is like, hey, use your speed, not your power, and then later on Smash, even that's not working because this Charizard is faster, and like you see like he tries to use like a tail whip and it like dodges out of the way.
Mm-hmm. By the way, the choice of these Pokemon, Blastoise, Charizard, and Venusaur, is another thing that I think the prologue, it just makes me hate the prologue more. The prologue seems to implicate that like the reason it's these three is because of some latent memory Mewtwo has of when he was still very small and these three Pokemon were being cloned. But no, the movie does it so much better because Mewtwo explains, like, much like many other trainers, I started with a Squirtle, a Charmander, and a Bulbasaur, which at the time would have been the three starters because there was no Gen 2.
Yeah.
And he's like, but I've pushed them to become even better, and now they're fully evolved, and also I've like cloned them into more perfect forms.
So he kicks all their asses.
Yeah.
And then then I'll say this scene is probably like that is all well kind of called Act 2, which I feel like is the weakest part of the movie.
Yeah.
But like I actually believe like Act 3 kind of begins once all the Pokeball, like all these like floating Pokeballs just kind of come in out of nowhere.
We should state what's going on and why that's happening is basically as soon as Mewtwo has destroyed, has like shown the superiority of his clones, he's like, now I'm going to
take my prize.
Yeah, he's going to, as he said, his original goal was like, he's going to destroy all of humanity and also all Pokemon that serve them and just repopulate the world with his better, more powerful clones. So now that he's won, he's like, I'm going to take my prize, your Pokemon. And these black, again, kind of organic looking Pokeballs that have eyes on the center instead of the little capsule button they would normally have, just like fly out of nowhere and start scooping up like everyone's Pokemon.
It's quite like let's say like in the context of Pokemon and like what these Pokemon mean to these trainers of like them being like bonded and full of friends, like they are being dragged and like basically taken away from them.
Yeah,
like,
the Pokemon are all like running away from this like the swarms of these things, and they're all being zapped up. And Ash tries to be like, oh, they can't get them if they're in their Pokeball, and like his Squirtle and Bulbasaur, he like calls them back to their Pokeballs. But then these things just suck up the Pokeballs with them inside, and
Brock is like, he's like, forget that, let's just run, and he like runs with his Vulpix, and it is just scooped, like zapped right out of his arms.
Yeah, like, it's a lot.
Yeah, and then and literally like I'll say this again, like this really establishes like that how Ash and Pikachu are like just their bond, because fucking like these Pokeballs come and like Ash literally like uses his back to block all of them.
Yeah.
And just it's like tells Pikachu just run, and like there's like this big spiral that Mewtwo like kind of came in, like he like kind of floated down from in between like before, but now like Ash and Pikachu are like physically running up this spiral.
And as Pikachu's running, these swarms of Pokeballs are coming down, and it keeps like shooting out all of this thunder to stop it, but then another swarm keeps coming, so Pikachu runs more and shoots out more lightning,
and like he's getting more and more tired every time he does it. Like he is heaving every time he's doing it, and like he is like, you can tell like he's getting kind of a bit like tired. Like a few of them get kind of closer shots, and like
right. And Ash is also running up this like spiral slope, trying to just catch up to Pikachu. And I think at one point just like slips and nearly falls off of it, like when he's again like 30 feet in the air and kind of climbs his way back up.
Yeah, because then Pikachu, I think after Pikachu gets kind of like he gets like so tired and like can't go any further, he like jumps off the.
Yeah, Pikachu falls off the spiral as well. And Ash is like, no, I can't, and jumps off the spiral to grab him.
And luckily he lands in the water, and as we all know, you can fall from space, and as long as you land from in water, you're fine.
It's Minecraft rules. So he falls in water and is fine, but like as soon as he comes back up with Pikachu in his arms, one of these Pokeballs finally comes down and captures him. And then he like runs after, like, no, you're not going to take Pikachu from me. And as all the Pokeballs that have gotten Pokemon are like
put into like this tube.
Yeah, going into these tubes, Ash like jumps under this thing that's closing and goes down this tube after it, which leads back to the conveyor belt at this cloning facility. And then it like creates clones of every Pokemon that the trainers who had come here had captured.
And like I say again, like Ash is like grabbing Pikachu's Pokeball, and he's like literally like pulling away as all these pieces of machinery are like he's just trying to like get out, and all these like mechanical arms are grabbing him and like pulling out. I'll say like it's not like they're not like tearing at his clothes or anything, but like it's like still but like they like it's still like is a horrifying thought, like
kinda.
like especially as adults knowing what actually happens when someone goes into machinery.
So there's all these arms that are like grabbing at the Pokeball and kind of grabbing at Ash, and he's like fighting against it and ripping it apart, and I think he literally bites into one.
Yeah, he bites it. Also, that's I mentioned like they don't tear it as close, but Ash can tear these mechanical arms from their sockets.
Team Rocket, by the way, meanwhile, is still just kind of there and watching all of these silhouettes come up on the screen, but then they see like sparking from inside the machine, and Ash, I guess, has just destroyed it from the inside out.
Yeah. Also, I have to mention that they do the who's that Pokemon bit again, but like I think at one point Cypher comes up, and what do they call it?
They say Alakazam when it's clearly Cypher.
Yeah. Like at first I thought like, wait, no, like are they just stupid and they just can't? But no, like then like two other Pokemon come up and they say the right names.
They say like Nidoqueen, Vaporeon, and it's like correct.
Yeah.
So all of these new clones are created, and Mewtwo like summons all of them up at once. So there's like this backup at the Pokemon Stadium. There's like this big explosion happens in the distance, and all of these clones walk out from it and take Mewtwo's side. And he's like, now finally I have what I've achieved. You humans are free to go.
No, he actually does not. He literally goes like, I spared your lives for now, but there is no escape.
Well, because the like storm he's conjuring is how he's going to destroy the world. So he's like, you can leave, but you're gonna die with the rest of humanity anyways. So
yeah,
just get out of my sight.
yeah, Ash is just like, no, we won't let you do that. As like I've seen this shot used around like whenever someone's talking about Pokemon in like video essays or whatever. So like it's a good shot of just like it's the full on like, you know, heroes walking towards the screen, like just ascending from the smoke. Ash comes out with all the Pokemon behind him.
The original Pokemon that he saved from all of these like dark Pokeballs.
Which I will say before we forget, this is also where the scene where Meowth looks at like all the Pokemon in their cloning tubes and is like, I have a connection with this one.
Yeah, specifically points to the Meowth in the tube and is like, I got a special place in my tail for this one, which I believe you.
Oh yeah, because I made the joke like
cats have hearts, you know.
Yeah.
So Ash and Mewtwo then kind of stare down each other and have like their engagement of like, oh, we're still gonna fight to prove that like, I don't know, humanity is good, Pokemon and humans are friends or whatever.
And I will say this is one thing is while the Charmant, like the Charizard, Blastoise, and Venusaur all have markings to differentiate them as the clones, all the other Pokemon, all the other Poke clones are just they're just identical. There's no markings or anything. I think the Pikachu clone has like a little bit of different pattern on his ear, but on his ears, but like that's it. Everything else is like exactly the same. So it does make it kind of hard to tell, like once they actually are like charging and fighting each other, it does kind of make it hard to tell who like which side is fighting which. And
which I think is kind of a good thing. I like that.
All right.
Because we'll get into it a little bit more as this big clash goes down. But like, I like that it's not particularly easy to tell which one either Pokemon is, because it creates that sort of confusion of just like, you're just seeing these two things fight and you don't know which is real and which is clone, which I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. We should probably talk about like Mew.
Oh yeah, Mew's in this movie.
Because I think around here is when Ash like says like we're gonna fight, and then rather than sending a Pokemon to fight Mewtwo, Ash just like charges at him, ready to just like punch him
with his fist.
Mewtwo again just like psychics him up and kind of just like throws him out into the distance. And as he's like about to collide with this like big stone spire, suddenly this pink bubble appears out of nowhere that he lands softly into anyways.
Yeah.
And then Mew shows up.
Yeah. And I like Mew is like being all playful. Like Mew is laughing at Ash, you know, rolling around on the spire. He's like creating his own spires and hopping on them himself. And then Mewtwo like starts like shooting off shadow balls, and he's just like, do you the original may have been made from your DNA, but I have surpassed you.
Right. And Mewtwo like just declares battle on Mew. It's like, we're gonna see which one is better. And Mew the whole time is just sort of playing and not really giving like any shit to this. Like
he's just like, fun.
Right. And I think Mewtwo lands like one good hit on Mew, and then suddenly Mew is like, oh, you want to go, motherfucker?
And like deflects it right back at him. And then like all the Pokemon are getting ready to fight, and Mewtwo specifically does say like, I have disabled all their powers, so now we'll see who's truly the stronger ones. And that's when oh my god, like this is where like, man, this is like, this movie sure was released in America in the year 2000 in America.
Yeah, because over this like very like
pretty brutal, like,
yeah, really like kind of I'm trying to find a good word for it.
Very like, I mean, very like, we'll just say like very violent, like there's no blood or anything, but like the Pokemon are like they're attacking, like they're biting each other, they're like hitting each other, like they're not using like big dramatic, you know, fire attacks or lightning attack. They're just having dog fights, like
a really brutal and really kind of like heartrending scene of like these Pokemon really fighting each other, not like you said, not like fire and lightning or anything like that, but just like taking punches. And I believe it's Charizard that one like bites the other's neck. But over top of all of this is this super, super cheesy acoustic guitar ballad That's just so... Man, this movie was
the only lyrics I
90s.
can remember are just like, brother, my brother, why do we have to do this? Like, it's kind of like, this is the kind of song I expect to like see a cowboy playing on guitar in a field. Like,
it's too gentle and too almost poppy, and it's like sappy in a way that like it really shouldn't be right now, because
like
what we're witnessing is kind of meant to be horrific.
Yeah, but like this corny ass like song is playing. Like, I'll say this, both watching it now and watching this like when I was like during like when we watched this in senior year of high school, we burst out laughing at this like this song
so
kills the scene,
wrong.
honestly.
It really does. I think ultimately this scene gets its due once that dumb song is done playing.
But it is it sticks out like a sore thumb. Like, it is such a like, wow. Listen, we can laugh about like and how much like I ironically love how 4Kids will just have random characters with weird accents and celebrity impressions. This is one of those moments where it's like, man, sometimes 4Kids really does.
I don't know if this was 4Kids doing this, though.
I mean,
that doesn't seem like a 4Kids decision. That kind of seems like we're trying to sell Pokemon as a movie kind of decision.
Also, I guess we're trying to sell the soundtrack as well.
Right, exactly.
Because
we'll get there.
because this had like a pop song soundtrack.
A pop song soundtrack that is not used in this movie other than this scene and the end credits. We then cut to, again, I think maybe my favorite jokey line, even though it's not intended as a joke at all, is Nurse Joy overlooking Joy overlooking this battle and her saying Pokemon aren't meant to fight.
And I guess this is as good as time as any to bring up the big thing that people often criticize about this movie, because there's also because it's something, as much as I give like there's some scene in this movie that where like you can kind of fill in the blanks yourself, this message is hammered into you.
Okay. We're getting a little ahead of ourselves on that, because that's something I want to give a lot more time and weight to.
All right. So should we talk about the Meowth scene?
Yeah, that's what I was going to talk about.
Okay.
I mean, before the Meowth scene is what I was going to say, what kind of gives the scene of the Pokemon fighting their clones and it being kind of tragic. What actually does get that message across very well is watching the two Pikachus fight. Because,
Ash looks down and sees it.
Ash looks down and sees his Pikachu just arms at its side, refusing to engage, and the other Pikachu, like, weepily, tears in its eyes. It doesn't want to do this either, but just it has nothing else it knows to do other than fight, is just like reeling back and keeps like slapping it across the face over and over and over and over.
And like you can tell it's getting out of breath. Like Ash's Pikachu keeps falling over, then getting back up just to take more beatings. It truly is like this is Jesus telling you to turn the other cheek. Like,
yeah, it is that level of like just so dire. And this is then we cut to the Meowth scene, which I do want to take quite a bit of time to talk about.
Oh yeah, I wonder why.
Okay, so as all these Pokemon are fighting, the clone Meowth approaches Team Rocket's Meowth, and you can distinguish those two because Team Rocket's Meowth usually, like, one stands on two legs usually, and also speaks English, which the clone doesn't, because intelligence that's not how clones work.
Yeah.
Pokemon the movie says eugenics bad. But it comes over and Meowth like immediately like gets battle ready and has his claws pop out and is like, wait, hold on, you're not gonna fight me? And like the other Meowth talks, and the one that speaks English kind of translates for us and says like, wait, you think all the fighting is pointless and stuff? Well, yeah, I agree, but like, how can I trust you? You were born different from me. How do I know you're not gonna pull a fast one on me or something like that? And the other Meowth just kind of says something that we don't hear and then looks up at the sky, and Meowth is like, I kind of agree. When you think about it, you and I have a lot in common. The same moon, the same stars, the same earth. Maybe if we, and this is like the big line one of the big lines people remember from this movie, maybe if we focused on what was the same instead of always focusing on what was different, well, who knows? So, so I want to take a second to talk about my personal relationship with this line, and also my relationship with who is saying this line.
Yes. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I am someone who I think I have in the past been a detractor of this line and this sentiment overall. One, because I do think it is kind of hammered a bit bluntly.
And in some ways it can kind of be taken as, I don't see color, I'm colorblind.
Yeah, something like that. It has sort of a, oh, just don't care about if people are different. We got to focus on, this. It feels kind of like a turn a blind eye to the differences around you, which
Yeah.
I think has always had a bad feel. And that was that's something that I had it's just a sentiment I was really, really strongly against, to the point where, I even remember when I was in college, a Twitter account of someone I followed and really respected at the time just posted a screenshot of Meowth saying that line and was like, oh, this is really good. I like this sentiment. And even though that was a person I respected, I remember responding to that and being like, hey, here's why I actually don't like that. But that was me in college. In the year 2024, as we are recording this, as I am now an out transgender woman, and as I now know the history of the voice actress of Meowth, Maddie Blaustein, who also at the time was I think by this time she was an out transgender woman.
She was out before she joined the Pokemon team.
Right, but I think she was even out to 4Kids by this time.
Yeah, I think I remember there's the phone interview with her that I have fully listened to and I showed you. She said I know in the first few season or so that it's she is still credited by her dead name, but it was kind of a thing of where it was something where as soon as she told everyone, they were okay, we'll change your name from now on, and
yeah, exactly.
I'm pretty sure her fellow cast members were also kind of new and were aware of that. Yeah,
I think in this movie she's credited as not her dead name, but I know there's a transitional name. I don't think she's credited as Maddie specifically, but something that to me, I know from her other work, indicates that she would have been out by this time. I know about this because I've read her comic Death Wish. And because if you didn't know this, the first 2 issues of Death Wish, she actually is still credited under her dead name. And it is only on the 3rd one that she is credited under this name, which isn't Maddie. Again, it feels like a transition between her dead name and the name she would ultimately go by. But so that to me indicates that oh, okay, so this is... It means that this is a line 100% being read by a transgender woman.
Yeah.
And at age 26 in the year 2024, I think I'm okay to say I actually really like this line,
Yeah.
Maybe it's because I don't know if I like this line as me being a kid watching it and Meowth is saying it, but me being an adult and hearing Maddie Blaustein, a personal inspiration and hero of mine to some extent, say those words maybe if we stopped focusing on what was different and focused on the things we have in common.
Yeah.
Reading that as a transgender sentiment rather than just what I thought it whatever it was before.
Yeah.
I really like it. And it means a lot to me now.
Let's I guess that's going to be a new challenge. See how many trans metaphors we can find in these movies.
Well, actually, if you want to do that, we'll put a pin in that.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, what we're what a trans feminine entity? We're not going to find anything like that.
yeah, no, what? So then moving on from that scene though, is Ash looking down at his Pikachu refusing to fight and be like, someone's got to be like Pikachu. Someone's got to choose not to fight and choose against violence. As he says that, Mew and Mewtwo come down in the middle of the arena, like as they're clashing together, and they both like go to opposite sides and start charging up for like this big psychic attacks against each other.
Ash runs in the middle.
Yeah, and Ash runs in to be like, no, both of you stop fighting. But by that point, it's too late, and both of them have already shot their beams.
And it collides with Ash.
Yeah, it collides in the center Ash.
I can only, again, I was a baby, like 3 at the oldest when this movie came out in theaters. I can only imagine what it would have been like if you were like my brother's age, being like, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and seeing that on screen.
Yeah, and I mean, seeing that on screen is shocking, but then kind of what follows it is even more. Because...
Ash, he falls to the ground and is just limp,
And Pikachu runs over to check on him, and he's just on the ground. His eyes are still wide open.
But they're faded as well, though.
Yeah, exactly. And as this psychic energy fades from around him, Ash Ketchum turns to stone?
I guess that's a way of kind of I don't know, that does strike me okay, here's a way we can kind of get away, we can kind of get past showing a dead body on the
showing a dead 10-year-old on screen, because I mean, that's what's happened. Ash has died.
Yeah, and in fact, even more, Pikachu. Pikachu tries to use. This
breaks my heart.
He tries to use his. He's essentially just trying to use. God, what are those devices called? The like a
defibrillator.
Yeah, defibrillator. Using his electric powers as a defibrillator to try and shock Ash's brain and heart back into function.
So I don't read it necessarily as that. I mean, that's
that's me putting it more scientific. But Pikachu is trying to get a reaction out of him at least.
I think the more clear allusion being made here is calling back to just the show, and particularly episode 1 of Pikachu zapping Ash just to get his attention, or if Pikachu was ever upset, or just to get any kind of reaction out of Ash. But now Pikachu is sadly standing over, again, essentially his dead body, constantly shocking him over and over, and nothing's happening, and everyone is just looking on this in shock and horror because Ash is dead.
Yeah. There's no yeah, he's turned to stone, but no, he's clearly dead.
And then all of the Pokemon, and this is why I kind of like that you can't tell what is original and what is clone Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
Is because ultimately this movie's message is it doesn't matter.
Right. Life
in itself is worthwhile and is a good thing. So again, it's a line that'll happen later, but it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, the line that no one remembers from this movie.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't really matter which. So I kind of like that you as a viewer have that kind of moment of confusion of not being able to tell which is which, because ultimately the point of the movie is that it shouldn't matter. I think maybe if that point was going to be sold a bit better, the original 3 clones shouldn't have had those markings. But
yeah.
I never said that this was a good movie.
Oh.
I just said that I liked it a lot.
Whole thing, going to film school, I realized that there's more to movies than if it's good or bad.
That's actually something that I think is going to be a recurring theme in us talking about Pokemon movies.
It's gonna have to be, because
Yeah.
I'll tell you, none of these are like, not only are none of these like live up to like Citizen Kane, none of these like at best these make it to like a mid-level Disney movie.
Yeah, exactly. But that's okay, because there's more to them than just being good or bad or mid.
But yeah. So, anyways, all the Pokemon are crying.
Yeah, exactly. As all the Pokemon are looking on the scene, they all start crying.
It's like, even like it's kind of hilarious. Like it's almost, there's something almost funny about looking at like a Gyarados cry.
Yeah, Pokemon whose face shape doesn't really contort to sadness, but we still see tears coming off them. And as their tears are coming off their faces, they kind of stop falling to the ground and instead kind of float towards the center of the stadium toward Ash. And this is the payoff of the Harbor Master saying, like, her story about, like, oh, these Pokemon lived in this city and their tears were able to perform a miracle. Or Amber, too, before she dies, saying, like, Pokemon tears are full of life. As we get this scene, and it's, again, another kind of beautiful shot, just, like, zoomed out of the stadium as we see all these different tear trails from all these Pokemon going into the center and converging on Ash.
And then it's Pikachu's tears that bring him back.
Yeah, and then Pikachu's tears fall on him, and he just comes back.
Yeah, and yeah. I guess this is probably a good moment. Before we get on to that moral, we should probably talk about the other, like the more controversial moral of this story, or the more controversial theme of this movie, that people kind of, that people will kind of say like, oh, why this is kind of stupid, is the whole idea of, and to be fair, this is definitely the theme that is hammered in your head, like, is the Pokemon aren't meant to fight thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And like North Shore says, Pokemon to fight, not like this. And like, I think Missy Lewis is like, this just proves that violence is wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think that where this movie fails is trying to get across an anti-violence message, because at the end of the day, it is a Pokemon movie.
It is Pokemon, because this is a franchise that is built on, you have these creatures that you fight each other with. That
right. Mewtwo poses an interesting question as far as Pokemon's relationship to humans, as like whether they're acting as servants and weapons or if they're truly acting as friends. And I think that's an interesting angle to take. But all of it kind of just boiling down to violence isn't the answer. We need to stop fighting.
Yeah.
Ultimately falls flat because it's Pokemon. The point of these things is that they battle.
Yeah, they battle. It's like just because they're not using fire and electricity, now it's wrong. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like, I get like the kind of counter argument is that Pokemon battles, like auction battles, are like still like treated as like a sport, and like they have rules, and they have like, you know, they just think like they have limits, but like they're still getting hurt. Like they are fainting. Yeah. You know, a Pokemon loses when it goes down. Oftentimes they get burns or something, like, or they get paralyzed, like.
Yeah, exactly. Like Pokemon fights are still at the end of the day fights. I understand Mewtwo has escalated it to the point of like
world domination, or just again, like, this is just kind of like, this is now just this is just a war, like, essentially, like.
Yeah, a war in miniature.
Yeah.
I don't know. It is one of the things that I do agree, like, you can't really make that the moral of your Pokemon movie.
Yeah.
It's just always going to fall flat.
Especially this super simplifies of, like, again, the super simplified that they hammer in of just them constantly saying, like, violence is wrong, violence is bad, like, yeah, okay, but yeah, so that is, you know, that is out of the way. But then that does lead into probably, you know, one of the best lines in this whole movie, and like all of Pokemon.
I think this is the thing. This line, I think, is the thing that has outlived this movie.
Oh,
because
yeah.
this is something you still see on like quotes, T-shirts, whatever.
Yeah, like Mewtwo, after he sees that Ash sacrificed himself, sacrificed himself to stop this fighting. He is then just like, I I was just so focused on making everyone fighting, but this human was trying to put a stop to this violence. I think the exact line is, I see now that the circumstances of one's birth are irrelevant. What you do with your life is what makes you who you are.
Yeah.
Like,
so remember when you were talking about transgender metaphors?
I think I see where this is going.
This is another. I have seen that line. I've heard that line before. I've known that line my whole life.
Yeah, like
ever since I was born, there was Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
That line of the circumstances of one's birth are irrelevant is what you do with the gift of life that makes you who you are.
Yes, that's the line.
I think I was less harsh on that line specifically because ultimately it's whatever.
I mean, it's also like there really is no way to like that line is like a genuine, like that's a nice sentiment. Like it's a little.
I've seen some takes of people that don't like it because it kind of sounds like, all right, this is an opinion I don't agree with, but I've seen it and have like taken it into account of like. It feels like Mewtwo saying that privilege doesn't exist.
Okay, yeah, but
also no, that's not that you're taking that out of context. You're taking away the privilege of the thing. Mewtwo of all fucking people or Pokemon knows that like privilege and like people can be born into harsher circumstances. He was born as a slave.
Yeah.
That's not his point. His takeaway is just that like what truly matters as far as your character is what you do.
Yeah. That yeah.
And again, to me, that was a sentiment that I always just like, oh, that's whatever. That's nice. It's maybe a bit of a forced sentiment at the end of this movie, but it is what it is. 2024, I am an out transgender woman. I teared up at Pokemon the first movie, Mewtwo Strikes Back. Hearing that line, this is just me doing the thing I always do, and I just think about it from the perspective of me being a trans woman. I don't know. It just hits really right. I really like it.
I can see where you get that from, and again, no matter which, like, kind of in the context of the movie, it is a good line, and overall, like, it's a very sweet sentiment of like, we are not destined by our births. We can shape our own lives, and that's what truly matters.
That I think is what's really good. And I guess Mewtwo then flies off with all of his cloned Pokemon.
I will say, again, plays a song that will be reused through like a lot of the Pokemon movies, but it is like a very beautiful song as like all the Pokemon are like floating off, and it is like dun, 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 dun. Like I can't do like a proper imitation of it, but like this very big, like sweeping, like very almost wondrous and beautiful, like orchestral like song that really just does kind of capture like the world of Pokemon. And like this world of like again, wonder, friendship, and adventure.
And as Mewtwo is soaring off with all of his clones, Ash is like, "Where are you going?" And he's just like, "Somewhere where," I forget what he says, but essentially just like
somewhere where I can like be like kind of learn to be like you. It's I was thinking of the Steven universe of like I could even learn how to love like you.
I think he goes off to like where I can learn to embody the lesson that you taught me, or that you have always known.
And then he goes, "But perhaps you shouldn't have remembered this." And then he transports everyone back.
I guess kind of just winds the clock back.
Yeah, this is another thing. It's like, what was this? Like,
yeah, I don't know why this happens, and I don't know if I like the whole like, no one but Mewtwo will remember what happened here. I think that's a bit rubbish.
Yeah, especially because like it also means that in some ways it kind of means that the characters didn't learn this lesson that was hammered into our heads, like.
Maybe, but I think the point that Mewtwo made was no one here had to learn anything but him.
Yeah.
He thought that everyone else was wrong. Ultimately, it's just him that's wrong. I think that's fine, but still, the whole just sending everyone back without their memories is strange. But anyway, we then return back to this shelter at the harbor where the harbor master and Officer Jenny are like, everyone needs to stay in. The storm is really bad. And then we see in the crowd Nurse Joy, show up and be like, the Pokemon Center is now open as another shelter if people need somewhere to stay. And there's another line here that I want to draw attention to because it's more subtle, but is yet another just like sweet note that I think this movie ends off on is Ash, Brock, and Misty are sort of like, maybe we can go over there instead of, wait, where are we? And how did we get here? And both Brock and Misty are like, I don't really remember. But Misty says, I think, another line that I think is just a sweet thing, which she says, like, maybe we're just here because we're here. That's another... This movie kind of almost too much tries to put morals at the end.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I do like all of them, so I don't care.
Like, they're all... On paper, these are all, like, very good morals, and...
Yeah. And then the harbor master and Jenny are like, it's a miracle. The storm has started to clear up.
Out comes the sun and dries up all the rain.
And then Ash and company go outside and look up.
Yeah, and they see... Well, I was going to say, like, they see Mew. And I do like that line where, like, Ash is like, on my first day, I saw a legendary rare Pokemon. I think I just saw another one. And Misty's like, well, I think... Like, maybe you're just seeing things. And then Brock is like, well, maybe you're not.
Yeah.
And then Ash is like, well, I can't remember the exact line, but it's like, maybe it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. Again, this movie trying so hard to have as many messages as possible.
Yeah, like this movie is definitely trying to be like a deep, like
profound.
Yeah, yes, that's the word I'm looking for. But so after that is kind of when they that's just kind of where the movie ends. That is when we have this credits sequence where we have like 4 30-second snippets of these random 2000s pop song. One of them is performed by Christina Aguilera.
Right, the first one is yet another. They're really trying to sell this movie as like a big budget thing.
We have like a known pop star like singing this song. And the visuals, and this is one thing I think might actually improve with other Pokemon movies, is that with like the newer ones, like they always kind of like continued the story. Like they kind of give it like here's what happened next, here's where they're off to next, here's what happened to these side characters.
A little bit, but...
And this one is just kind of Ash, Misty, and Brock just kind of going back on their journey. They're walking through the woods, they're in their sleeping bag, then suddenly they're in the desert next to a road.
Yeah, I see what you mean. This is actually something I like about the Pokemon movies, is that the end credit sequence, especially for the first few of them, I don't know if this keeps up, but they just, rather than having like some of the later ones will have, as you said, like here's what these side characters are up to, or here's some other stuff going on, but I actually prefer these like Ash and company just continue on their adventure end credit sequences, because again, it's why engaging with these movies is more fulfilling to me than the show ever was. Is like it gives you the sense of like you just saw one adventure of these characters, but they're just going to continue. Like, it's a journey continues, even if it's not like this specific journey is over, but these characters are just going to keep going on with their lives.
Yeah. It's almost like a classic sort of rides off into the sunset sort of ending.
It's exactly what it is. And it's like the fact that it's always these shots of them just on the road in their sleeping bags or overlooking a field or a mountain or something. It really gives you the feeling of the wide world of Pokemon, like it's another just... It's a vibe or a tone that always draws me to these movies of like just seeing how beautiful this world is.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just really nice. It's a nice sentiment, and I like it.
And they like, and then you said like they do eat, like they come across like a herd of toros. Exactly. It does kind of showcase the world. I guess we'll kind of have to wait and see just sort of the merits of the other, and need to see which one I kind of prefer. I do kind of like the ones that like, a little bit of like, hey, here's like a nice little bit of closure for these side characters that we introduced in this movie. Giving something for them as well.
There's one notable example I'm thinking of, but we'll cover it when it happens.
I think I'm thinking of it as well, but we'll get there when we get there.
But that, I think, wraps it up for the first movie.
Yeah, wraps it up with, again, 4, like, not like full-on songs, 4 30-second snippets of random pop songs that you can hear the full versions of in the album, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, is I think they're really trying to push this album where they have Christina Aguilera, they have Britney Spears on it, they have Vitamin C, they have, I think, NSYNC, like,
which, I mean, those are gigantic, those names are almost as big as Pokemon.
Yeah.
So overall, again, this is a movie. I think I even pitched to you, like, after we were done, said this movie is better and worse than I remember it being.
I think that's ultimately a good sentiment to leave it at. There's parts of this movie that are definitely, like, kind of fall flat or don't really work out,
And if there's one thing this movie is, it's corny. This movie is
100%.
So cheesy and corny that, like, again,
absolutely,
like, watching. I'll say one kind of mindset I went into this movie is like, okay, like, because my is like, can I see my mom hating this movie? And like, and like, she hates how the Pokemon, like, only say their name. She thinks it's annoying. And I'll say, for the first part, like, for like the first act, that really isn't going on too much. But like near the end, when like all the battles are going on, and they are like during the cloning scenes, like, yeah, they are just kind of spouting off their names over and over again. Like, I can definitely see that, like, I can see why, if you didn't grow up with Pokemon, if that, like, you have no, like, relationship with this franchise other than, like, oh, my little brother's into it, my kids are into it, you can, like, I can totally get why you would not only like dislike this movie, but hate this movie and think it's dumb, it's stupid.
Sure. But I think that's wrong, and I think you're dumb and stupid.
Yeah. No. I fully agree with you in that one. And I think also just because, what truly matters is not what Rotten Tomatoes says; it's what the movie means to you.
Exactly. And what this movie means to me is, man, it feels. You know what this movie is to me? It felt like a really nice way of... It felt like a bit of a reflection on how I've developed and changed as a person, whether that's between me and who I was as a kid when I first saw this, when I was a teenager and riffed on it as we did in high school, or if that's my opinions on things when I watched it in college for that hell spiral that I described at the beginning of the episode. And I think it's nice that I've ultimately come around to... I think I like this movie.
Yeah, like, I personally do like this movie.
I don't think it all works, but I think that's okay.
The pacing is kind of a little bit all over the place. For the most part, like, a lot of the side characters don't really serve a lot of purpose. Like, Brock and Misty don't do much. Like, they have some good scenes, but, like, you can kind of cut them out and not much would change. Team Rocket is also the same way, and that's especially saying something because this is probably the movie where, like, Team Rocket is the most relevant to the plot. But, like...
Right, yeah. Beyond just the Meowth scene, Team Rocket are here to be comic relief, but they're not good at that.
During a scene that is, like, very, like, traumatic and, like, very, like, dramatic, like, at a very inappropriate time. And, like, again, the message, like, the pop songs are so again, cheesy, corny, dumb. The messages, it maybe throws a whole bunch out, and the one it really does, like, the one it hammers in the most is, like, a really kind of flawed one, especially for a franchise like this. But overall, like, it's still Pokemon. It still kind of fills me with wonder. It fills me with kind of joy. And I think, again, if we talk about how a movie means to you, I will say that in preparation for this movie, I did listen to a cast reunion panel with the 4Kids actors, Veronica Taylor as Ash, Rachel Lillis playing both Misty and Jessie, Eric Stewart as Brock and James, and Philip Bartlett or Jay Goad as Mewtwo. Which, fun fact, this is like that last one, Philip Bartlett or Jay Goad. I think Jay Goad is, like, the current one, so I think that's what he goes by right now. this is like, he actually like is not an established 4Kids voice actor. Like he has basically just done this movie, the short, and then everything else he's done has been like actually like he's done like live action like TV and stuff like that. And actually like it wasn't until like basically kind of after this he was kind of done with film. And he even described like in this in this panel I listened to, he talked about how like he had like not long after this he had kind of stepped away from from like acting. It wasn't really until like he kind of came back to like do like meet the fans sort of thing to a convention did he kind of realize how much of an impact this had on people, what it kind of meant, especially to the 4Kids voice actors, to those three main actors. They talked about how kind of at the time 4Kids was a very kind of small studio, kind of coming from humble beginnings. There were like they had, I think Rachel Lillis, who she talked about how like when she was kind of trying out for this role, which I know in another thing she talked about, this is kind of a part-time thing. She was also working as like a waitress while she was on Pokemon, and at least in the first few seasons. But she like when she was trying to do research for this role and trying to figure out what the hell this was, she's like, oh, the most I could find was like a very compressed picture of Pikachu on some Japanese website. And like I think either Jay Goad or Eric Stewart talked about how like when you're in the process of like doing voice work, a lot of times producers will say that this is like gonna be the next big thing, this is gonna be a big role, and like they will say that over and over again, and you're just kind of like, I'm just happy to have work. And again, like they have a lot of like crossover voices, like a lot of people are like a lot of multiple actors are playing the same people. Eric Stewart was also working as a director on this project. A lot of the voice actors did a lot of other kind of work besides like they did directing and writing and translating roles, which that's still a lot of Funimation actors also do that nowadays.
Yeah, right.
But like it is like they talked about how like at the beginning, like when they are first doing this, when they are first dubbing the first episode, they were in a small studio just kind of dubbing the lines by themselves, watching the lip flaps. And then when this movie came out, when this movie was being created and they were going to dub this movie, they went from this small like kind of one room studio to like a full on like legit big sound stage of professional equipment. And they had like when you dub a show, you have to actually like watch the lip flaps and try to like match them. And for this movie, like before they were just on like a small screen. For this movie, they had like a giant projector screen that they were like, well, we better match these flips. This is when they truly like this was kind of the moment where they said like, oh, this is something big. This is something that is kind of like this is kind of like I said, like this kind of became a part of them. And this was kind of that moment where they hit like of how big this really franchise is and how it's going to be around, like how it's going to last as long as it did. I say Veronica Taylor had a very cute line where she talked like how like when they went to the premiere, at first she thought that like the theater was empty, but that was just because most of the audience were children and she couldn't see them over she couldn't like see their heads over the seats. And like again, like just the amazement that this film is like it tries to have some things, it tries to have some good morals and tries to have a few jokes that are there for the adults, but this movie is made for children.
Absolutely.
But the fact that it is a movie that is this made for kids that became such a worldwide phenomenon that like made so much money off half-price child tickets, like it. I think this truly is like it was a very like the way I've like it wasn't just this like this 2023 reunion that I listened to, but it's like the same reunion that like multiple times when I've seen those three, Veronica Taylor, Rachel Lillis, and Eric Stewart, when I've seen them in panels, they always talk about how big this movie felt to them, that this was like a big stepping stone within their career. A lot of them, this is the first time they had worked on a feature-length film. It meant a lot to them, and because of that, it's like I can't hate this film because it probably made so many great memories for these people that I really do admire. I mean, I've met Eric Stewart in real life. He is such a sweet guy. And I listening to Jay Goad, I think they talked about how like one person asked like, oh, what is a like what is something that you kind of learned about yourself through your character? And Jay Goad said like Mewtwo's first line in this movie is "Who am I?" And as someone who kind of like, you know, went on a bit of journey, like someone who was doing acting for about like a decade, then not long after this film kind of went on and like did other things, you know, left the acting scene. Like this film like truly like it's another reason why I want to watch these 4Kids voice dubs, because even though they are just, you know, they are just dubbing this show, this franchise and these movies, these characters do mean a lot to these actors, to these people. They've connected to them. Eric Stewart has said like multiple times of like how he thinks that Pokemon has a good message about, and how like he thinks it's a show like about like, again, someone who played both Brock and James, about like how, you know, even though Team Rocket, even though they're bad guys, they're like, you know, they still have these backstories. They still have sympathetic traits to them.
Something that I think will come up a lot in later movies is like Team Rocket, even though they're the bad guys, like if things are dire enough, they will help.
Yeah. I mean, I think even then, again, they were also kind of horrified watching these dogfights.
Yeah, exactly. Like Team Rocket truly are, they want to catch Pikachu because that's what their boss wants, and that's kind of it.
Yeah. Yeah, like, listen, like Team Rocket doesn't really do much besides steal and occasionally kidnap. Like,
yeah, and even then they're bad at it, and
yeah.
two, like,
I mean, I guess there was that one time when they held an old man up at gunpoint, but you know.
and those were freeze guns or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that episode was never dubbed, so that never happened.
There you go. I think that's a good place for us to maybe wrap up.
Yeah. I had my little soapbox speech about these actors I'm really passionate about.
I mean, I had my whole thing about Maddie, so that's
yeah. Truly, like, rest in peace. Like, so,
yeah. Rest in peace to the late great Maddie Blaustein, and thank you very, very much for this line that for most of my life I've hated, and now I love.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's basically wraps everything up. I take a drink every time I say yeah. And we hope to see you next time. We hope you've enjoyed this. We hope you maybe learned a little something from this about kind of maybe about yourselves, about film.
About yourselves. That's actually the sentiment I want to be the takeaway here is if you're the kind of person who thinks you can enjoy a Pokemon movie, get yourself a friend, sit down, have a good time, learn something about yourself.
We'll see. You know, we're starting off so optimistic with this journey. I certainly hope that, like, by the time we get to Black and White, we aren't.
Yeah.
Well, you know, only time will tell.
Only time will tell.
But yes,
so thank you.
Yeah, thank you
for checking out our pilot episode, and we hope to see you next time when we're going to be watching Pokemon the Movie 2000: The Power of One.